Hello learners, welcome to computing class. In this tutorial, we're going to discuss sources of information. Good. Sources of information. Before we start everything, what do you think we are going to talk about? We are still talking about information. Good. Sources of information to help us know where we get information from. Good. So we learned that sources of information is where we get information from. Source of information is where we get information from. Good. You have to write down that note. First, we get information on television. So when I ask this question in class, write down sources of information, then you go and write television. No. Radio. No, it's wrong. Write news on television. 2. News on radio, not radio, because the radio itself is information too. It's not the source of information, but it's the information too. And the news that is being broadcasted on the radio is the information. Newspaper. We have class teacher. We have the parents. We have friends. We have magazine, telephone calls, notebook, storybook, textbook. These are some of the sources of information. We have more, but we are limited to this for now, so that you can memorize them well and know them. When I ask you to write sources of information for me, you should be able to write it nicely like this. Have what? News on television, news on radio, newspaper, class teacher. Someone will write person. Good. So we get information from person. By writing person, you have mentioned the class teacher, the parents, friends, family, sibling, and all of you. You can get information from person, okay? And get information from magazine, and get information from the telephone call, get information from the notebook. So if you copy this down, so you should write down this, because I will ask you. So if you write this down right now, it becomes information, and then source of information is your notebook, because you can go back to your notebook and read. When reading the notebook, then you get the information. Look at these pictures. You see that these people are reading here. These people they are just discussing something, and this person is making phone call. So we get information from reading books, from a friend or person, and then from news that we hear on mobile phone. When you make phone call, you get information. Good. So now we have levels of information. As information has been classified, how we get the information has been classified to level 1, level 2, and level 3. Good. So the first level is the primary source of information. So at the primary source of information, we have the memos, letters that we write, the interviews, the speeches, laws, internal records. So all these are categorized in primary source. So these are the ones that were not edited as is original. So while somebody is saying you are writing a memo, or you are writing a letter to someone, or you go to somewhere, you interview someone, you write it down, or maybe director delivering speech at a ceremony, or laws of your country, they are being written down. Then we have internal records. So these are all primary source of information. So now if I quote anything from the law, I got the information from the law that has been written down. Good. When you say something in a speech and I copy it and write it back, where did I get it from? From your speech. So that's the source of information, where I got that information from. You write a letter to your parent, and your parent read the letter, then they get information from that letter, and that's a primary source. Good. When we move to the secondary source of information, then we talk about the encyclopedias, talk about the textbooks, talk about the handbooks, the magazine, the newspapers, the newscast. These are categorized in the secondary sources. So we have the encyclopedias, textbooks, handbooks, magazines, newspapers, and newscasts. These documents have been edited. They have been edited and then worked on as the secondary. These ones are, let's say, default, like it's been done primarily, not edited. This one, you can see that encyclopedia is being edited and then done in a very formal way. Textbooks have been edited. All this in newspapers, they have to edit the newspaper, newscast. So they are in the secondary to check it. Then we will go to the tertiary. We see that these are indexes like the larger form. We have the bibliographics, we have the internet, and the search engine. We'll be learning about all this. So when you see the internet is found in the tertiary source of information. When I say right source of information, we don't write the tools, but rather write the source where we get the information. The internet is not information tool, but rather source of information, and it is in the tertiary source of information. Right? Good. And search engines, example is the Google search engine. When you go to you go online on the internet and Google something, you are using the Google search engine. Okay? Good. Now, let's talk about the first one, primary source. As I was saying earlier on, the original information when it is first appeared or first happens, that is unedited. Good. So these ones are unedited. That means as they first appear, somebody is saying, as I'm saying or I'm talking to you right now, it's not edited. It's just something that I'm saying. Good. So it's what? Primary. That's the primary source of information. You are getting the information from me, and it's primary because not edited. Right? Good. So the examples which are mentioned under the primary source are here. We have the interviews, as I mentioned earlier. We have letters. We have events, speeches, manuscripts, community meetings, as maybe they organize a meeting in your community and people sitting down taking memo out of the meeting. Then you have primary source, or you go to the meeting and you get information from what has been discussed in the meeting. So that's also source of information. Then we have diaries, personal journals, and blog. So you have your diary, some small book that you jot down something. It's a diary. So you have your personal journal and you have your personal information in it, and all these are primary source of information. We talk about the debates and discussions, the surveys. Survey is to go around and then find out about something. Survey something. You question people about something. Then we have the historical documents. Maybe some documents are already edited and are placed in a particular place. You can go to, like if you go to the library, you can have some of these documents there. You get primary source of information from there. Then we have artifacts. We have the email contacts. We have the photographs, and so on. There are a lot, but let's end this one here. Then if we go to the secondary, as I mentioned earlier, you have the bibliographics, you have the biographical works, you have the comment, you have the commentaries, and then criticism being written in a document or just like a newspaper form. Then we have dictionaries and encyclopedias. We have journal and articles, magazine, newspapers. These are secondary source of information. If I'm too fast, just I want the video not to be long. So just go back, pause the video, go back and watch over again and get the right understanding. It will help you, right? What I want you to take home here is that when I mention or I ask you to mention source of information, don't write the information tools.